welcome back, everyone, to the Zanpakuto creation series. For my own personal character list, we got Chewbacca, the Wookiee. So Chewbacca, because Chewbacca doesn't speak English, and which, by the way, I don't believe Wookiees are Wookiees capable of speaking Basic, as it would be known in the Star Wars universe. I don't think they are. I mean, it's maybe. Because Chewbacca's not capable of speaking Basic. It's a little difficult to interpret his personality in the sense of creating a Zanpakuto. We know a lot about Chewie. Chewie's a loyal friend. He's very smart and as a pilot. Chewie's also over 300 years old, if I'm not mistaken, 200 plus years old at least. I think he's like close to 300 by the time we get to Force Awakens. But yeah, he'd be an older Shinigami. Maybe not the oldest, but he'd be an older Shinigami. And B, it'd be interesting to hear, see him in a fight where, he goes, and, there's what? And then the Zanpakuto changes. Now, what the Zanpakuto is, well, let's get into that. I think because of his size, and I think he's an older, powerful Shinigami, he might actually have a Kodachi as his Zanpakuto, not a standard katana. Though the bulk, 95% of Shinigami's Zanpakutos are katanas, every once in a while you get a Zanpakuto that's not. Ibas and Geens are actually Tantos. They're actually, I think Geens is actually a Wakizashi, if I'm not mistaken. But, and same with Soifons. Soifons is also a Wakizashi. Iba's is a Tanto, basically a short sword. Not even a short sword, basically a dagger, more or less. Either way, I think just due to his size, it would be a Kodachi. Now, it's, what type of Zanpakuto it is? Well, that's a little tricky based on the concept I kind of have here. I think it's kind of a mix of a melee Kido, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Its release command, though, would be, stick him to the wall, bear's paw. And one second here, I'm just gonna adjust the name real quick to see if that. Let's see, bear's paw, which is either, depending on your pronunciation, Bezu Po or Kumapo. Its Bankai's name, though, is Bear Double Paw Takedown. And let me see here. It bears. Let's see, Bezu no Dabarapo Tekadao. God, okay. Hold on. So let me just see here. Let me do this individually because that's really more just phonetics translation. So let's see. Kuma. Let's see. Double paw. Double paw. Yeah, no, okay. So Kuma Dabarupo. See now, and take down, strike down. Take down, I think is one word, not two. Oruso. There we go. Okay, so, and the spirit is in the vein of a Wookiee, but I think would look more bear-like. Now, okay, what does the Shikai look like? What does it do? This is one of the cases where I did lean to lend it from the actual lore. I decided to model it after his bowcaster, which is ironically a very powerful weapon. It's a huge weapon that Chewie uses, and because of his size, he doesn't get a lot of kickback from it because he's so big and strong. We saw Han use it in the Force Awakens. I like this thing. But instead of the actual gun firing, it does look more like a crossbow. You still get the two round balancers on the side there. It doesn't necessarily have a scope to it. So it does take more of the form of a crossbow than the actual bowcaster itself. But it is modeled after that. And what it essentially does is, it fires reishi shots. Basically, it fires reishi attacks. Basically a reishi arrow. Or a bullet, take your pick. Now, it does have a ultimate attack where it does charge up a shot. And this charge looks like the maw of a bear coming in and swiping at the opponent, kind of. But that is more or less what it is. It's a mid to long range weapon, not even a close range weapon. And, it's good for pot shotting. Honestly, it's kind of like Lily Barrow's weapon a little bit. But then the Bankai. Okay, this is where we are ultimately um, evolving the Zanpakuto. The two, I never understand what things are called, but they're not the bandoliers, I don't think. The bandolier is what's around Chewie's shoulder, around his chest. But the two balancers, I'll call them, the two things jutting from the side, basically shoot out, grow larger, and boom, they're basically on two sides of the battlefield. They're probably like the size of large trees sticking out. Not straight up, mind you, but kind of like on an angle. And the bowcaster, or the actual, crossbow part of it, stays the same. However, now, whenever Chewie fires a shot, there's like a rope, there's like a line of energy between them. Basically, he's created this little area of effect, area of effect, without really intending to be an area of effect, because there is an invisible line of Ryoko, between the 2 points. And anytime one of his shots goes through there, it basically slows down briefly for doubling down, decreasing his speed, and doubling the power. In essence, he's kind of created this kill box that he's now amplified every one of his attacks from. And I imagine like the fully evolved state of this Bankai isn't just a line of Ryatsu. And it's probably a thick line of Ryatsu. He's still got to aim his shot. But it's now more like almost not a wall, but there is this there's this sheet of Ryatsu that a normal person can pass through. Like any random person can just pass through. Their Ryatsu, they're not feeling like, because there's Ryatsu all over the place in the Soul Society. When someone is trying to move between the 2 points, they'll move through it just fine without disrupting it. Maybe they'll feel a tingle of like there's a separate Ryatsu, like between these 2 points. There's like a field of Ryatsu that I can't pinpoint. But yeah, anytime an attack passes through there, then it's just boing, like just funneling through and bending through. It slows down briefly before doubling in speed and power. And this effect can basically be multiplied any number of times depending on depending on how many attacks he puts through there. I'd say the only real catch on this is that there might be a limit to how many attacks you could do, because you are still having to put the attacks through this there's only so much room on the wall, on the sheet, on the string, if you will, to put an attack on. But once you get to like the fully evolved part of the Bankai, where it's like more like a thin wall, thin sheet, there's so much room that the amount you'd have to you'd have to throw at the opponent in order to overwhelm the Bankai would be it's astronomical. And I can still say this, and I would still say there might be one final super technique to represent the bear's paws. The idea maybe if he's decides to just hit the bowcaster directly on in the middle of the line of Ryatsu, let's call it, and just pump all his Ryatsu in there, that the two let's call it conductors. The two conductors, basically charge up, kind of look like bear paw, and just smack down on the opponent. So what is this Zanpakuto's overall strength and weakness? It is a bit of a setup Bankai. Like, you need to keep opponents in that area, because if they just go outside the area of effect, well, then it's kind of pointless. I mean, granted, because of the range of the Bankai and because of the way it works, even if they say just got out of the radius between them, you could still hit them, but the farther distance you get away from the Bankai, the less effect it has. It is a kind of a stationary area of effect Bankai. But you could say that for a lot of Bankais, to be fair. Beyond that, though, the Shikai is a mid to long range weapon. It's not a close range weapon. I mean, yeah, like anyone, you can bop someone in the head with any physical object, but it's not designed for physical combat. It isn't. Despite the fact that Chewie is very much a physical fighter in his own right. And beyond... excuse me. I just started yelling all of a sudden. Beyond that, the Bankai is cool and all. There's plenty of ways to negate this Bankai. Reishi absorption. So Yumajika's Zanpakuto would be a nightmare against this Zanpakuto. Anything that can just block Reishi, anyone who's faster. Destroying the two connecting points would all. I mean, granted, that would probably take a lot of effort, but destroying the two connecting points would probably would ruin this Bankai. So it's a cool Zanpakuto. It's just not an all-powerful Zanpakuto. And to be fair, most Zanpakuto aren't designed to be all-powerful. Only a couple. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.